8. Yo, picture this: a quiet street in Westfield, New Jersey, late 1971. Leaves rustling, kids laughing in the distance, dogs barking at some random squirrel, houses all neat and shiny. On the outside, life looked perfect, like a suburban magazine cover. But behind one house, behind that white picket fence, something straight up evil had gone down. 8. The kind of evil you don't hear about in your Sunday church sermon. The kind of evil that shakes your trust in humanity. This is the story of John Emil List, the man who killed his entire family and walked away clean, ghosting the world for nearly 2 decades. John List wasn't your typical criminal. Nah. This dude was what everyone called a stand, church, going, suit and tie type. Polite, calm, smiled at neighbors, even helped old ladies carry groceries. If he waved at you, you waved back. If he nodded at you, you felt safe. And that's the crazy part. This guy could murder 5 people, including his own kids, and still have people trust him. That's the kind of mask John wore, and he wore it damn well. But John's life wasn't as perfect as it seemed. Money was tight, bills stacking like Jenga blocks, ready to fall, and pride, oh man, pride ran his life. John List was obsessed with control, with order, with perfection. He believed in moral rules, strict rules, and in his twisted view, his family wasn't living up to the mark. His wife, Helen, 8, wasn't as obedient as he thought she should be. His kids, Patricia, Frederick, and John Jr., weren't exactly the kids he imagined in his moral blueprint. His mother, Alma, too, didn't fit into his vision of a righteous life. And instead of facing problems the normal way, John's brain cooked up a plan so dark it makes you question how someone can think like that and still sip coffee on a Sunday morning. November 9th, 1971, started like any other day for John. Or at least, that's what he wanted everyone to think. But that night, in the calm of the List house, he snapped. And when I say snapped, 8, I mean he executed a plan so precise it could have been scripted in a crime thriller. John went room to room, one by one, silencing the people he was supposed to love the most. Quietly, methodically. 8, no screams, no struggle heard outside those walls. By the end of the night, 5 people were dead, and John List had turned his suburban home into a tomb. He started with his mother, Alma. She was in her bedroom, probably watching the news, oblivious to the horror about to unfold. John approached her quietly, calmly, and executed her, done before she could even blink. No screams, no drama, just a quiet, terrifying finality. Next, his wife Helen. She was upstairs, probably ironing or reading. John approached her with the same chilling calm. He didn't yell. He didn't panic. He did what he believed he had to do and moved on. Then came the kids. Patricia, Frederick, John Jr., innocent, trusting, going about their own routines. John had them in his sights, and before they knew it, their lives were snuffed out. Every step calculated, every detail rehearsed. By the end of the night, the house was silent. Death had claimed 5 lives. 8, and the man who orchestrated was already thinking about his next moves. Most people can't even imagine a mind that can compartmentalize that level of horror. For John List, it was all about control. He was in complete command of life, death, and perception. Now, you might be wondering, how did he think he'd get away with this? Well, John was smart. He knew the system, he knew people's expectations, and he exploited them. He mailed letters to the kids' schools, telling them they were moving to live with relatives. He set up timers on lights so the house looked lived in. He even continued to pay bills for a while, making it look like the family was just gone on a long trip. Neighbors assumed they had moved. Nobody questioned it. The house was a tomb, and everyone walked by without a clue. After the murders, John List didn't just disappear. He vanished into the fabric of everyday America. He took on a new identity, Robert Peter. Bob Clark moved to Colorado and started living a new life like nothing had ever happened. New job, new friends, new church, new routines. He even remarried, blending seamlessly into society. People around him saw a normal guy, polite, quiet, church-going. Nobody suspected a thing. But while he was out there living the perfect life. The house he left behind was rotting with secrets. Mail piled up, bills unpaid, the smell eventually becoming noticeable to neighbors. Authorities started poking around, but without modern tech and with John gone, the trail went cold. That's the thing about this case. It wasn't flashy. It wasn't chaotic. It was quiet, calculated, and long-lasting. That's why it haunted law enforcement for nearly 18 years. Meanwhile, John List in Colorado was doing what he did best, blending in. He got a job as an accountant, crunching numbers, following routines, nodding politely at coworkers. He went to church every Sunday, smiled at people, and acted like a guy who belonged. And somehow, in his mind, this was normal. He wasn't a criminal. He wasn't a killer. He was just fixing problems the way he knew how. Twisted, right? Over the years, the case stayed in the headlines intermittently. Newspapers ran photos of the List house. Articles chronicled the disappearance, but nobody could find John. The case became one of those legendary cold cases. People whispered about it. 8. Kids learned about it in true crime stories, but John stayed invisible. He was a ghost walking among the living. Then came the breakthrough. The FBI and local police never gave up. They studied his background, looked at financial records, insurance policies, church memberships, and slowly pieced together the trail. The Game Changer. 8. America's Most Wanted picked up the case in the late 1980s. The broadcast showed John's face, details about the murders, and the alias he was living under. People started recognizing him. 8. Tipping authorities off, and finally, after nearly 2 decades, the ghost had a body again. When authorities finally confronted him in 1989, John didn't run. He didn't yell or fight. He knew the jig was up. Arrested quietly, he finally had to face the consequences of the life he had hidden behind a mask of normalcy for 18 years. At trial, the story got even weirder. The jury learned how John had meticulously planned every murder, every alibi, every detail to make it look like his family had just disappeared. They learned about his obsession with control, his warped morality, and how he justified killing his loved ones in his own mind. And the world saw a man who could compartmentalize murder, new life, and church-going all at the same time. Psychologists later said, John List's mind was a textbook case of extreme control and obsession. He was orderly, perfectionistic, rigid, traits that, in his case, tipped into deadly territory. 8. He wasn't impulsive. He wasn't reckless. He was calculated, methodical, and cold as ice. And that's what made him terrifying. The impact on his neighborhood and surviving community was huge. 8. People couldn't believe this guy. They waved at every morning had done something so horrific. It challenged ideas about trust, family, and suburban life. And the case still haunts true crime fans today, because it's not just about death, it's about the illusion of normalcy hiding monstrous deeds. Even after he was arrested and sentenced. 8. People kept dissecting the case. True crime shows, documentaries, podcasts, they all dive into John List's mind, his perfect planning. 8. And how a man could appear normal while hiding a mountain of lies. Some say the case changed how police investigate missing persons. 8. Others say it's a warning about the dangers of perfectionism and obsessive control taken too far. John List died in prison in 2008, still a figure of fascination. His story is taught in criminology classes, analyzed in psychological studies, and told in chilling detail to anyone who wants to understand the dark side of human behavior. 8. And it all started in that quiet suburban house in New Jersey, on that cold November night, when a man decided to take life into his own hands, in the most calculated way imaginable. This story messes with your head because it's not flashy. There's no car chase, no dramatic robbery, no screaming headlines. Just a quiet man, a suburban home, and a perfect crime that almost went undetected for 18 years. And in the end, John List is a reminder that sometimes the scariest monsters don't live under your bed, they live next door. Smile at you and nod politely, hiding darkness in plain sight. So, every time you think you know your neighbors, remember John List. Remember the house that looked perfect from the outside. 88. But inside it held a nightmare. And remember how someone can walk among the living, live a whole life, and yet never escape the consequences of their choices.